Welcome back. We're the Connor Happer Show here on 1620 The Zone and on 1620thezone.com. Connor Happer, Josh Hodson with you. And we're joined on the 42 Degrees of Source hotline by Sam McKewon from the Omaha World-Herald. Sam, good afternoon. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Good. Take one conference and leave the other, the Big Ten and the Big East in basketball.
For basketball?
Yes.
Big East. For quality of players and quality of play. I think obviously that's probably the better, more competitive league. I think the Big East would match up quite well with the Big Ten. The other league, though, for like rivalries and storylines and things like that. So I think there's some, the Big Ten there's always something going on. Yeah. And there's a certain fun aspect to that as a result. I think the basketball in the Big East is better, but the soap opera in the Big Ten is soapier.
I don't know, man. The Big East has some
strength.
They got some wacko stuff going on. I mean, people forget about Ed Cooley and then the documentary that came out after that. That was fun.
That's true. That's a good one. That's a good point. And then Rick Pitino went off yesterday too. But
that was awesome.
I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on in the Big Ten right now. It's going to be, kind of an interesting offseason. I speculate at least a third and maybe up to half of the coaches will be gone. I think you're going to see a massive turnover in coaching in the league. So we'll see how it all shakes out.
Hey, let me ask you about. So you mentioned the Pitino thing, and I sort of turned it into a bigger picture deal. Rick Pitino came in and he cleared out his entire roster, and he got new players, much like Fred Hoiberg did in his first year. Although I think Fred was probably a little bit less like, "Hey, it's time for you to leave." I think he wanted Roby probably to come back, and that didn't end up happening.
Yeah.
But we've seen this happen a couple times where the coaches, they start fresh and they start over. And by the end of the first year, almost every time, whether it's basketball and football, they're like, yeah, I kind of regret that. That's kind of what's happened and how it's gone for some of these guys in their first trip. I wonder when we're going to kind of learn our lesson maybe on this. And I think most schools and most teams and most new coaches probably have at this point. But I don't know. It felt like it was going to be the new big thing at first. Hey, we're going to build our entire roster for the transfer portal. And it turns out that was never going to be a good plan.
Do you happen to know who put together St. John's roster this year?
Yeah, the director of NIL. He had some history here, Matt Abdelmassi.
Yeah. So
super cool.
That guy should feel great about his job after yesterday's rant. We recruited the wrong guys. I'll tell you what. Same thing happened here.
Same exact thing.
Matt's a nice guy. I like him, but yeah, the players that they had here were not the right players for Fred Hoiberg. It's not that it wasn't so much the transfer thing. It was that a lot of the players just weren't the kind of guys that Fred wanted. I can think of some really talented players that they had. Hanif Cheatham was a Fred guy, and he was pretty good.
Yeah, he would have been fine on a team like this.
I think they put it together too much with analytics and too much with numbers. And what they have now, what Fred has now is, some different kinds of parts. Some guys that are maybe a little more blue collar in some spots, maybe do things a little bit differently. Obviously, C.J. Wilcher was a Matt Abdelmassi guy, and C.J.'s turned out to be a really nice complementary piece. He might be sixth man of the year off the bench. But if you look at the guys that Fred went and got, seasoned, older, maybe not the most athletic guys on the planet, but smart basketball players. Bryce Williams, coach's son, rink mask, smart guy. Josiah Alec, lunch pail, Sam Griesel, same thing there. I don't know if Sam would have been a recruit under Matt. I just don't know, because Sam's not the fastest guy, but Sam's got all the other components. He's a leader. He's a rebounder.
Yeah,
He
no,
he was tough.
he would not have, Sam. He would not have.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think what's changed is that, Fred got guys in there who kind of understand him and understand that if you're going to play for Fred Hoiberg, you have to be like really, what's the right word? Just like really aware offensively, because his offense is not easy to learn. And if you do learn it and you execute it, it's pretty darn good, but it's not easy to learn. Now, Casey, a lot of people think Casey got, no, Matt did not get Casey. That was Doc Sadler. His relationship with Billy Gillespie is the biggest reason why they got Casey. So, probably the best transfer, the best recruit of the Hoiberg era might be Casey. And that one you chalk back up to Doc. And maybe Derek Walker. Derek Walker's probably the best player of the Fred era, and I think that one was Matt. So,
yeah, I don't think Matt was at Ranger College, scouting out recruits like Casey. I don't think he unearthed that one. No,
not too much.
Sam McKewon from the Omaha World-Herald is with us. Yeah, I'm not sure. That guy probably should be a little bit concerned about his job status going into next year. Hey, I was reading. We're gonna have multiple parts here of Chattel's session with Rhule, and parts of it come out over the weekend, and there's one up today about Dylan Raiola and NIL impact and all these things. I really like the hey, let's take a look around the office part. Why do you think Matt Rhule has really made it a point to allow us to allow fans and media and whoever to sort of to be so transparent about his life and like who he is and all of that stuff? Like, well, do you think that was a point from him, or I guess is it just kind of who he is?
Well, I think what he would say is he would give an answer about how it's important to be him and it's important this and that and all that. My answer, and this is based on my opinion, my read of him, is he tried it the other way, and I just don't think that's who he was, and it didn't work.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of coaches do that. I think a lot of coaches are like, I'm going to go into this thing and I'm going to be stoic, and I'm going to be a little unknowable, and I'm going to be a little beyond, and there was a generation of coach where I think that worked for him. And that was kind of the way it was. Everybody kind of minded everybody's business. You didn't really know a lot about him personally. And that's just not the world we live in today. I think, to be honest with you, I think coaches are probably better spouses and fathers than they probably were 50 years ago. No, I'm not trying to knock any coaches 50 years ago. But I think there's just a little bit more of a holistic approach for football coaches today. And I suspect Matt, like a lot of other coaches, tried it the other way. And it's just like, yeah, this is I need to integrate all of it into my life. So I'm gonna be a front facing sort of celebrity person. Simultaneously, my daughters are gonna be by my side pretty consistently. And that's just how life's gonna be. And other coaches, I think you go back 30, 40 years and was like, yeah, my personal life's over there. They don't even show up to the games sometimes. Like that's just not the way the world works anymore. And so he's better than most, I think, at being able to do that and having it seem organic, because I think he's a little bit more personable.
Yeah.
But we saw what happened. And again, everybody has their own choices, but we saw how this wore on Scott Frost. Like, it didn't work.
Yep.
You never really got to know him as a person, and I don't think that helped him at all. I think it hurt him. And as a result, I think the only thing we ever knew about the guy was his football calls. And Matt Rhule, we know a lot more about him already.
I was just going to ask you about that. Do you think he even knew about how his predecessor approached it? I mean, or do you think he was, told off the bat, like, hey, this is kind of how that went? Because I felt like this was how Rhule was going to approach it, kind of all along. But obviously, like you just said, his predecessor was sort of hurt by the idea that he was going to be closed off to all this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, even if he had been told, I think that would have been, he still would have been himself. That wouldn't have changed anything. I think he still would have been, the same guy, and approach things the same way. But yeah, I'm sure he was informed. Hey, it didn't go so well for the previous guy here.
Yeah. I wonder if he saw that and was like, yeah, maybe this is a good way to do it. But I think to a certain extent, I mean, it's kind of just all him. Football wise, you wrote a little bit in your rewind about Matt Rhule and their success with kids out of the Miami area. And once again, to tie it back to the previous staff, they had success in getting those guys, but maybe not so much success in keeping those guys and having them produce. What's the key for that to happen this time around with this group of players from whether it's Florida or Miami or, I mean, really anywhere? I guess what's the key to it?
I think you have to immerse them a little bit in your culture and get them doing hard things and being busy all the time. And in that perpetual busyness, there's a space that's created for, not being tied back to where you are. I think a lot of what happens today, especially with athletes that come from other places, is it's just hard to leave home. It's hard to leave home because you get that phone in your pocket and you have home in your pocket at all times. And when you're trying to like start something in college away from home, you feel like my job is to try to be two people at once. And it used to be when a guy left Miami or LA or New Orleans, they left. I mean, they left and they were in a completely different world, at Nebraska, and maybe they called home once a week on the dorm phone or whatever. But that's what happened. Now you basically are tied to the world all the time. And I think that's the thing that's challenging for athletes that come from other places, because they're constantly being reminded of things that are going on at home that they can't control or want to be a part of, but really can't. And so that you never have that sort of that emotional sever. It's not as complete. And so you have to try to immerse people in the experience here so that, every third day, it's not, well, here's what's going on here. And how can I be involved over the phone? And I don't know. There's a lot of things with phone culture that I don't think that we as just American people have gotten our arms around, and we'll probably get our arms around in the next 10 years. And I honestly don't think our culture will be very similar to phones as they are right now, once we understand everything that's going on. But I think that's been part of the challenge is, that's part of it. And the phones reduce your, attention span and all these other things too. So.
Hey, Sam, I'm an idiot. I feel really bad. That was your rewind from like a month ago. So
that's okay.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to ask about something.
Phil Simpson to Florida State. So
that's true. Yeah.
It's relatable because now they got to find another guy to go down there. See, I mean, part of the reason they were able to get those guys up here from Miami is because they had a guy that was from Miami who would be like, yeah, I'm here. I'm here for you. And that's something they'll have to, if they want to continue to recruit that area, they're going to have to rediscover that and have that, so on and so forth.
I'm just saying a guy not named Sam McKewon might've been like, hey, thanks for reading. I appreciate it. But this is like old news by now. So I appreciate you trying to not throw me under the bus like Rick Pitino to his players, but don't worry. I'm here to throw myself under the bus. I got you.
Okay. That's good. All right. Well, hey, it all works to me.
All right, Sam. Talk to you later. Thanks.
Take care. Bye.
Sam McKewon from the Omaha World-Herald. I was trying to ask our lovely beat reporters.
Nobody would have ever known
about. I know, but
Year of transparency.
No, that's not true. That's not true. Somebody would have thought, this is weird. What's he talking about? It's not topical whatsoever. Somebody would have thought something. And so I figured I'd come clean with it. And I'd love to ask our lovely beat reporters about stuff that they're writing about.
Mm-hmm.
And so I saw Sam's pinned tweet, and it was sitting right there at the top. And I figured, let's click on this. I hadn't even seen this yet. I hadn't read it. So I skimmed through it. And I was like, okay, that's a question. It is from January 28th.
Oh, cool. So it's all Sam's fault. Got it.